Hi there. I just wanted to start off this presentation just to give everyone an update on the current application cycle. I see that the majority of people have put in an application for fall 2020. And I know the most common question we're getting at this time is when will I hear back? So typically May and June is when the majority of admissions decisions tend to go back. So if you haven't heard back yet, this is really normal, but we encourage you to continue to check your Choose Ryerson portal over the coming weeks, specifically the My Communications section at the bottom, because that's where you'll be hearing from us. Every single applicant does receive a decision from us. So if it's pending, truly is still pending, and we're just working on getting a decision to you as soon as possible. So I'll be helping primarily in the Q&A box today. So if you have any specific questions about admissions, or if you're looking to apply in the future and have specific questions about that, feel free to type some questions up and I'll be able to assist you there. But now I will pass it on to Kristen to start the presentation.
Thanks so much, Nicole. Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Kristen Smith, and I'm the Associate Director of the undergraduate program here in the School of Social Work. And it's so nice to be with you here today. And I'm really delighted, we all are delighted that you're applying or thinking about applying to come to our school. I wanted to just start off saying, what is it that is different about our school? Because we really do think that we stand out amongst schools of social work in Canada. And I'll start by saying that typically when you go to a school of social work, you're going to learn some really good skills for helping people, for supporting people, especially when they're in situations of distress or anguish or having troubles in their lives. And those are really important skills and that all social workers need to have. And we certainly do provide you with that knowledge and those skills here. But the extra thing that we do at our school is we also think about why is it that people are in those situations of personal troubles. And we think about ways of preventing them and doing larger scale social change work. And certainly at this time of this pandemic, what we're all seeing is that the gaps are being revealed that a lot of people end up falling through in society, especially poor people and people who are marginalized. And so in our school, we really think about ways to advocate and to do social change through social action, through research, through community mobilization, through advocating and lobbying government to try and make sure that those types of social supports are in place so that we are better equipped, for instance, right now during a time of a public emergency, to make sure that everybody in our communities are safe and well cared for. So Ryerson School of Social Work takes that responsibility really seriously. And we work to turn out graduates who have really strong critical analysis skills, strong communication skills, lobbying, social action skills. Many of our students self-identify as activists in their orientation, and they are very committed to social justice, which is really kind of at the heart of our entire curriculum. Every single course you take will be building those skills to think through how are all the different ways that we can achieve social justice in the world around us. So we do both of those things, and our graduates have very strong skills in helping others on individual and family level, but they also have those skills to make those larger scale social change. And all of the employers who eventually take up our students talk about what they like about Ryerson graduates is that they can hit the ground running. They're very well prepared through up to 2 placements that you do where you actually learn hands-on direct service, how it works. And also by the time you graduate, you have those skills in place where you have that actual experience. So the other thing I wanted to talk about just at the beginning, because it's often a common question, is what happens after I graduate? What are the outcomes of all this learning that you're going to do with us? What kind of jobs can you expect to get? And what we found is our graduates do really well in the employment market. As I said, employers really like our graduates a lot. And we find that a lot of our graduates end up working in health and social services. So there can be hospital settings. Social services, including child welfare, is oftentimes a popular employment opportunity after graduation. Our students also work in mental health settings. They work in, education systems. We do a lot of school placements that students find really interesting. They find themselves working in the corrections. And also there's like public policy and research opportunities and government type jobs too that can happen for our graduates. The other sector that's really important, I think, to think about that people find jobs in are community-based social services. So there'd be shelter systems, group homes. I mentioned mental health. A lot of our students are drawn to working with children and families around mental health issues. And another really important sector is addictions. And we cover off and touch on a lot of these things in our coursework. Students learn about these different sectors through their placements. And so when they hit the ground and they're ready to go after graduation, they're able to apply for those jobs and get them. So I'm really happy to be here with you today. My job will be to answer, along with my colleague, Michelle Free, who you're going to meet next, to answer questions about curriculum. You know, what is it like to be there? What can you anticipate in this next upcoming year and how will it work? And hopefully we can answer all your questions. So for now, I'm going to hand it over to my dear colleague, Michelle Free, and Michelle will introduce themselves and let you know what their job is.
Thank you, Kristen. And that was a great overview of the curriculum and the program. So thank you for that. And welcome, everybody. Happy to be here. A little nervous, just put that out there. My role in the School of Social Work is a Student Affairs Coordinator. So generally that means I work with our students from years 1 through 4. My role is academic advising, questions, helping students find other resources in the university, just generally trying to support a lot of emails to folks, and really happy to be in this role. I thought maybe I will keep this brief, and we're all going to be here, like Kristen said, to answer questions, but I thought I'd just sort of give like a very brief overview of what the program kind of looks like and how it unfolds. So basically, you are thinking of or have applied to a 4-year Bachelor of Social program. We have 3 entries actually to the program, one into first, one in second year, and that's for students who have completed a 2-year social service worker diploma or equivalent. And we also have an entry into third year, which is a part-time program for folks, generally speaking, who have worked in the field for quite some time and have either a related degree or a diploma. Those are the 3 ways that people enter this program. Regardless of what year you come into, it is a direct entry program. So if you come into first year, you're in the social work program. You don't have to reapply to do your senior years, the 3rd or 4th year, same second year. And then third year is the last 2 years of the program. So generally speaking, so talking about sort of the first year of the program, starting in first year, you do get introduced to social work courses. So in your first semester of first year, you're doing a foundational social work course, so it's foundation to critical social work, and those are a basic social work practice course. At the same time, come into the first year of the program, we're also studying sort of other fields of work, take introduction to politics, psychology, sociology. There's an elective that you usually have in the first year. Second year is where the program really does focus very much on social work. So you're studying things like social policy, a few classes that are direct practice experiences, social change, social justice sort of focus classes, looking at ways of bringing Indigenous and Aboriginal perspectives to social work practice. And then in the final 2 years, depending on how you enter the program, is where students start to do their practical work. So first placement for those who came into first year happens in the third year of the program. While at the same time, you're also studying social work research. You're looking at, again, further sort of delving into decolonizing social work practice. And fourth year is the more of in the field sort of, because both years you're in the field in a particular placement setting. It's very direct learning, structured learning, but that's, yeah, so that's what the last 2 years of the program look like. But the first and second year are really building your skills and ready to be in your field practicum. I made a few notes. One of the things, So yeah, it's a practical applied degree. So there are a lot of mandatory work courses that you're throughout the time of the program, but all through required to take elective courses where, so you can find other sort of areas of interest that you might have while you're in your university experience. And sometimes those elective choices that you're making or field that you're interested in might lead you to think about. So there's lots of to broaden your experience in the program. And I think that's pretty much what I wanted to just sort of go over before turning it over to our student, Jack.
Hi. Hi, my name's Jack. It's, as Kristen said, it's lovely to be with you all right now, even though it's through a computer. I hope everyone is staying well and as safe as they can. So I am an undergraduate student in the program. I just completed my 5th year and I have 1 more to go. I have to complete my 4th year placement. I came into the program as a transfer student. I had done a year of studies in the arts in a different university and came into the 1st year of this program. I was given some transfer credits, which was helpful for some elective courses and things like that. And yes, now it's taken me a little longer than 4 years to complete the program, which is okay. Life happens and we learn stuff through school and through outside of school, which is okay too. Yes, and I will speak also a little bit about what I have done in terms of extracurriculars through the university and also how my placement experience was. So my first one. At the end of 1st year, I had the opportunity to work as a research assistant within the Faculty of Community Services. It was in the School of Early Childhood Studies, and that connection was facilitated through an elective course. So that was a really valuable learning experience, and it was on childcare policy. I was also on the Social Work Students Union as a 1st year ambassador, so my role was similar to what we're doing now, welcoming 1st year students, assisting with the transition into university academic life and also outside of academics as well. Along the same vein, I have been a mentor in the Ryerson Tri-Mentoring Program, which is if you decide to come to Ryerson, whether or not it's in social work, I would suggest that you check out that resource because what it is it matches 1st year students with upper year students, just to sort of connect on anything that is on your mind, to attend events together, to talk about academics, to just have a friendly face around the university. My placement experience, I have finished my 3rd year placement at this point, and I was placed in a women's shelter downtown Toronto. So I really did jump in that setting. That was some really valuable experience in terms of mental health support, in terms of crisis, in terms of how the shelter system interacts with other systems, other social service systems. Was really great to be kind of thrown in there. Yes, I guess if I can say just a highlight of my time at Ryerson so far, and will just be with me kind of forever, is just the people that I've met there. Such as those on screen, and the community that has been created within the school and beyond the school. So it's been just wonderful to be a part of that. And yes, and and I wanted to say that one event that is really, really fun and good for social work students, everyone really, but is Social Justice Week. So in the fall, every year, there is a Social Justice Week. Help me with the name of the chair that puts that on. Perhaps someone can say that after I'm finished. But it is a full week of panels, of workshops, of discussions, even live actor simulations sometimes, where students from all disciplines can kind of come together and explore different social justice issues that are happening right now. Yeah, so that's all I have to say right now. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have from the student perspective. Yes.
Thanks, Jack. Okay, I think we're ready to go into our Q&A session now. So Jess, if you can maybe introduce us to a couple of questions from our participants, that would be great.
Hey there, yeah, I have a few different options for questions from some of the people who are attending our session right now. So one of our questions is from Aaron, and Aaron asks, do we get to choose our placements? Let's say if we are more interested in mental health settings, would we have a say where our placement happens?
Okay, I can answer that one if it's okay. We have a field office, a field education office here at the school that is staffed by really knowledgeable people who are field officers who assist. Each one is assigned a group of students. Students have an opportunity well before their very first placement to identify key areas of interest to them. And so that's done through a pretty cool survey system where you fill out some forms, and you know, your officer who's going to be placing you or helping you do the placement really gets to know you. You have a chance to meet with that person, to communicate with them. What are your preferences? Then that field officer goes out and scans, and we have hundreds of field placement opportunities available to us at the school. They scan those options, and they believe they come up with sort of what they think would be the top 3 choices for you. So for instance, if you're interested in mental health, they would make sure that the options that they generate for you are around mental health. The other thing I know, which I think is going above and beyond, is they also think about the location where you live and accessibility and transportation and what would work best for you. So they work as hard as they possibly can to tailor the placement to what will meet your needs and will serve your interests going forward. And then you get a chance to pick your choice of placement. And then you go off into the next phase, and you usually will do an interview or go and meet at the agency to see if you like them, and they get a chance to check you out and decide if you're a good fit for them. So that's generally how it works.
Can I add something quick?
Sure.
I just wanted to add that students are really well supported through the process in terms of resume writing and preparing for the interview. There's workshops put on. And I have certainly found them really helpful. And yes, that's that.
Wonderful. We have a question from Yura saying, to be a counselor in a social work setting, is pursuing a master's degree more preferred?
I can answer that one. To do counseling work in a counseling setting, you can actually do that with your bachelor's of social work degree, as long as you get that training that's necessary. We provide a lot of that in our program, and oftentimes agencies as well will do training for their frontline workers too. I worked for my first, I guess it was 10 years as a frontline social worker doing counseling in mental health with my Bachelor of Social Work degree. And then I decided to go back and get my master's. In part, that was because I wanted to be able to make a little bit of a higher income, but I also wanted to expand my skills too. It's oftentimes what that process looks like is you get your Bachelor of Social Work degree first. Oftentimes you're encouraged to go out and work for a couple of years, and then you would apply to a graduate program to get your master's if that's what you wish to do. And I'm really happy to say that a lot of our graduates do go on to master's level, and we also have some of our graduates that have gone on to do their PhD level of studies as well, which is really cool because they're now going to be training and educating our next generation of social workers.
Fantastic. We have a question from Zania saying, how did you know that social work was your passion? I think this is a good question for sort of everyone here. Okay,
Jack, do you want to start with that one?
How did I know that social work was my passion? I did not at the sort of at the outset of pursuing post-secondary education, I did not start in social work. So I actually did a lot of science classes in high school, and thought about pursuing something in the sciences. And then I think sort of along the way thought about potentially psychology. And that's what I began to take the prerequisites for in the first university that I studied at. And then through that, getting exposure to disciplines like sociology, women and gender studies, things like that, I started to maybe develop a different way of thinking, a critical awareness of some of the social problems around me. And then I also, so I thought about kind of going into something like that, something that would fit with that way of thinking. Also, certainly lived experience of struggle, of interacting with social workers and other kinds of helping professionals has led me to think about how I would want to give back. So I think when I was applying to Ryerson, I had sociology application and I had a social work application. And what I did was I thought about it. And I think what kind of pushed me into the direction of social work was its practical focus. So the fact that we would get hundreds of hours of placement experience, that those skills would be transferable no matter where I decided to go after that. And that's what I have to say.
I can answer that too. I would say I had a lot of lived experience as a teenager with some real struggles and real situations where I was in a lot of distress and needed a lot of supports, and encountered a lot of different helping individuals, helping professions. But by and far, the people that I found were the most effective and supportive in helping me make the changes I needed to make were social workers. So that was kind of my first experience being exposed to social work and what it was that they did. And I thought, oh man, that would be super cool to be able to do that and turn around and provide that kind of help and support to others. And then after I was able to get more stabilized in my life, I began to engage with a lot of community-based activism, became a lot more aware of social injustice. And then I really figured out I could go back to school and learn how to do this type of work and be paid for it too. So that was a really big enlightening moment for me. And that's what got me into the social work program. And I have not looked back since.
Awesome. Thank you for those responses. Those were great. We have a couple of questions here that I'm going to sort of combine. So Aaron wants to know, can I do any classes or placements throughout the summer for my BSW? And an anonymous attendee wants to know, how long is this program typically? So maybe if we could just sort of touch on how malleable or static is the sort of schedule and breakdown of the years, and how can students sort of transform their schedule if they have sort of other commitments or things that come up that they need to deal with.
Michelle, are you able to respond to that?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, so program that we talked about it being sort of a 4-year degree, there's a lot of flexibility. I think people would find it able to be very supportive of the student experience and wanting students to complete their program while also sort of maintaining their health and other things in life that are for them. So though it is a 4-year program, some students finish it in 6 years, some folks take even a little longer than that. In terms of doing summer courses, there are definitely a number of elective options offered spring and summer. A lot of students will, a lot of our students actually take spring summer courses. The mandatory program courses are only offered sort of either in the fall or either in the winter. So they're a little more, they're a little more set in terms of, like, some, for example, a student might want to be comfortable carrying 4 courses instead of 5. And so what they might do every year is take 4 in the fall, 4 in the winter, and catch up 2 electives in the summer. So there's a lot of flexibility. That is one of the things that I find I meet with a lot of students about, is just figuring out what's a good path to complete the requirements of the degree. And there's a lot of support around doing that as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. I have another set of questions that I'm going to sort of deliver at the same time. So one being, Anonymous wants to know, what building are the classes mostly in and what kind of courses will we be taking? And Erin wants to know, how many in-class hours a week for the full-time program? So maybe if we could break down sort of a typical day or week in the life of a social work student, and where are they spending their time? What are they doing in class? Things like that.
Do you want to take that one, Michelle? Because it has to do with sort of what a first-year curriculum would ideally look like.
I think I can speak to some of it, and then maybe Jack, you're to it than I am, but maybe we can sort of give some perspective on that. So I think part of our classes, and if you've ever been to Ryerson's campus, it seems like a rather large campus. It's once you kind of get used to navigating, it's actually quite tight. You can you can walk through campus in 12 minutes, I think, is something like the largest distance. But our classes are scattered throughout the university. Our offices, our administrative offices, and our faculty members and our field offices are located in that's called Eric Palin Hall, which is at Church. And so that's where the hub of the school is, but classes can be in any of the Ryerson buildings. I'm sorry, I'm kind of, Jack, would you be comfortable speaking more, sort of giving, even if you just look at sort of first through third years in terms of the classes you were in?
Sure, yes. So classes, so if you're taking, so one class is 3 hours a week. So you will either, most of the time, it is a 3-hour lecture with a couple of breaks or one break. However, I remember that in my first year, there were 1 or 2 classes, and depending on what electives you might take, you might have a 2-hour lecture, and then on a different week, come together and meet again for a 1-hour tutorial or something like that. So if you're doing a full-time course load, 5 classes per semester, then that's 15 hours a week. And sometimes students decide, especially if they're commuting, to kind of put 3 classes on one day or 2 classes on one day to kind of do that. Or you can spread them out as much as is available, as much as the classes are available to do that. So that's kind of the amount of hours per week. And given that I am completed my 5th year, I did not do full-time studies throughout the entire time. In fact, I took some breaks and came back. So yeah, so that's what that is. In first year, your classes are, you have required classes in the disciplines of sociology, psychology, politics, as well as your foundational social work course that Michelle was mentioning at the beginning. In second year, you are delving deeper into some of the social work theories and practices. So you have an excellent course, really excellent course called Power, Resistance, and Change, where maybe Kristen can speak to that if there's interest in more detail about that. But that's a really fantastic course. There's also a chance in second year, you also do another class called Preparing for Social Work Practice, where you sort of begin to develop some of the practical skills amongst your classmates that you will take with you as you move forward into practice. Also in second year, there is a class with a simulation. So you will actually be able to practice what it might be like to act as a social worker with live actors will come into the class and sort of act out a simulation. So that's a really interesting and exciting class too for students and a good learning experience. In third year, you are taking a couple more maybe elective courses professionally related to social work or professional social work classes, as well as the core classes of research and policy. forgive me, also, you do the first part of policy and second semester specific to social work. So yeah, so that's third year. You also do a really important class in third year called Decolonizing Social Work Practice. And that's okay if you're not quite familiar with that term, decolonizing, but really what that means is, and what our school is trying to push towards is understanding some of the harms that social work has been and is complicit in, some of the social harms, and specifically with Indigenous people of this land. So decolonizing is really trying to unpack that and recognizing what that means and how we should be moving forward in relationship with the land and with Indigenous peoples in our social work practice. Right, research. In fourth year, which I have not done yet, but your class along with your placement is a seminar where I'm not really sure what happens yet, but I'm excited. I imagine that we will be discussing what happens in our placement and engaging with readings and all sorts of things. And that's kind of, yeah, right. And as Michelle said, the sort of hub, there's a student lounge in the building at Girardin Church, where I spend a lot of time. You can study or eat lunch. And classrooms there, as well as the attached building called Sally Horsfall Eaton. But classes can be anywhere on campus. And in terms of study space, there's a lot of study space around campus. And then there's there's a glass building at Gould and Young, kind of on the main street there. And there's a library, things like that. Yep. Oh, there's also a student center. There's a student center where there are several, kind of like a meeting place, I suppose, for students. And there's some equity service centers that social work students sometimes, I mean, all students, but social work students also might get involved in, things like Rye Pride, things like there's a food bank on campus for students, things like that. Yeah.
Awesome. These are fantastic answers. I really appreciate it. We have an anonymous attendee asking, is it common to have an opportunity to become a research assistant, as Jack mentioned? Is it possible to participate in research in other fields outside of social work?
Okay, I can answer that one. I think Jack shared a little bit earlier about how they had an opportunity through an elective to make a nice connection with a professor who then hired them as a researcher on their project. And I've done that myself as well with a number of undergraduate students. Our Faculty of Community Services has a number of funding pockets that students can apply to engage in their own research and work alongside a professor who can assist them and mentor them and teach them skills. So yeah, there's an awful lot of opportunities if you are interested in research. We've got a lot of faculty who bring in a lot of major research projects, and they're always on the look for undergraduate as well as graduate students who are interested in research, because that's a really amazing part of our job, is to actually teach those skills to students. So yeah, there definitely would be opportunities to do that.
Fantastic.
You can always volunteer at conferences and stuff like that. So if you're kind of interested in research or learning about what research is happening, when we all are able to meet in person again, there will likely be conferences going on, and that's sort of what I've done, is volunteer at those conferences. You get to sit in and listen, and that's always good too.
Fantastic. It's awesome to hear about. We have Diana asking, do you know the employment percentage rate by any chance for graduates?
No, Diana, that's such a good question, and I wish I was prepared with some of those finer statistics, but I don't have them at my fingertips, and I'm not even sure if they're being compiled. Michelle, do we have any data on those kinds of questions?
We don't, is the short answer.
Okay. Sorry, Diana, we can't give you those specifics.
Not a problem. We have anonymous attendee asking, how is the overall environment at Ryerson?
Jack, do you want to talk about that from student perspective?
Okay. The overall environment at Ryerson, like at large, in the social work program,
I'm going to assume we're sort of talking about the community as a whole. I'm also happy to weigh in here, maybe after if you'd like.
okay. Maybe you can start. What about that?
Sure thing. I'll just hop on camera here, no problem. So if anyone wasn't here for my introduction earlier, my name is Jake. I'm a liaison officer in the Office of the Registrar, and I actually just graduated from Ryerson last year, not in the social work program, forgive me. But so I'm happy to talk about sort of the community at Ryerson. So I found that coming to Ryerson, I came from sort of a small town in southwestern Ontario, and I came to Toronto looking for a change of pace, really, and I found that at Ryerson. Ryerson is exactly what I wanted out of a university personally. It's so inclusive. It's really an environment where all of those things you hear about a university, where you sort of want to be exposed to new ideas and expand your mind in that way. I found that was something that was really accessible to me at Ryerson. Some of those equity centers that Jack mentioned earlier, you know, Rye Pride, Rye Access, the Center for Women and Trans People, the Racialized Students Collective, all of those different organizations, they'll hold different sort of events and things. So there's really something for everyone. It's a really great place to get involved. You can go to events, you can go to shows that tend to all be put on by students. And Kristen mentioned earlier, actually, that a lot of students who come into the social work program sort of identify themselves as activists before they show up. I find that that's true in a lot of the programs at Ryerson. I personally graduated from the sociology program, so that's sort of very much in line with our speed there too as well. Yeah, I really think that the thing that stood out to me about Ryerson's community as a student was the inclusivity and how that goes all the way from the top down. From I lived in residence, that was a huge experience for me, the sort of supports that are available there, the career center, all the way down to the profs and the students themselves. The types of conversations that I was having at university were unlike any that I had beforehand. And it was a hugely transformative experience for me and a lot of my friends. So that's my 2 cents on the situation and the overall atmosphere of Ryerson.
Thanks a lot, Jake.
No problem. Did anyone else want to weigh in on that, or I can move on to the next question?
I mean, I'll just say that, I mean, in the social work program anyways, I think the overall environment or feeling that I might, that I kind of identify or can share is that it's supportive, I think. So I think that you know, there's not a lot of, certainly within the social work program, there really isn't that kind of competitiveness maybe that exists in other programs or other schools. You know, I think even, I mean, yeah, we have to, if we're going to be kind of helpers in whatever that looks like, you know, I think we need to start with our lives and our peers, right? So I think that's been my experience, that it's been very supportive amongst students and amongst faculty. Yeah, I think that's maybe the word that I'll say.
Yeah, and I'll just add too, I'll dovetail on what Jack just said, because I think the environment in our school, or the climate in our school, is one of really taking student accommodations very seriously. So if you have unique ways of learning, or maybe you're bringing with you disability, all of our instructors work hard to figure out how to teach program content in ways that will be the most meaningful to you and the most accessible and inclusive as possible. So there's a lot of emphasis on equity. How do we make an equal playing field for all of our students so that everybody's strengths get to shine and they get to succeed? So there's just an incredibly, I think, a real supportive environment in our school. And I hear that feedback from students as well quite a bit in my role, how much it really helps them in terms of their overall success in getting through the program.
Amazing. Really appreciate these answers. We have another anonymous attendee asking, is it true that if you have a BSW, your master's only takes 1 year versus 2?
In many cases, that is true. If you decide to do a master's degree with us at Ryerson, it is a 12-month program. And as I'm thinking about the different university programs I know, many of them are 1 year. You will occasionally find 2-year programs. Certainly, if you don't have a BSW going into a master's of social work, you're going to have to do that extra year to gain some of the foundational knowledge. But a BSW really does open the door to doing a master's degree in a more quicker fashion.
Amazing. Another question about sort of continued studies after the BSW. Is social work a good undergrad before pursuing law?
Interestingly, I just finished doing 2 support letters for our graduates who are applying to law school. And off the top of my head, I'm thinking of a 3rd person last year that successfully got into law school with their social work degree. I also will add that Ryerson has now is in the process of launching their law school. And I know through conversations with some of the people involved in that project, they're very interested down the road in making sort of a combined law degree and social work degree, which I think is a fantastic combination. Because when I was in direct frontline services, I often found myself, I worked in violence against women sector for many years, as well as sexual assault centers. So I spent a lot of time in court accompanying service users and advocating for them. And I would encounter and have to work with a lot of lawyers, and they would all say to me, it is so helpful to have social work skills on this case. So there's definitely a good fit there. And I would really, really encourage all of our graduates who are interested in the legal system to think about law school.
Awesome. Zania also is asking, how does the workload look like in this program? Are there a lot of presentations or research?
Okay, I can talk a little bit about that from the courses that I have taught in the program over, I've now been there, this is going to be coming up to my 10th year at Ryerson. And in the entry-level courses in 1st and 2nd year, there is a real combination of methods of teaching. You'll have students will be working with their professor, doing sort of lectures and discussions about issues and case scenarios. Oftentimes students are asked to engage in group work where you get a lot of support to sort of delve into a particular social issue that you're interested in. And then you'll be offered the opportunity to do class presentations to share the knowledge that you've gained. Students are also asked to do a lot of deep critical reflection type exercises, which involves you sort of examining your own personal social location and how that maps onto the type of social work that you might be doing. There's also, you learn how to write a really good paper and how to do longer papers and shorter papers, research papers. We work closely with our librarian at Ryerson, and Jane Schmidt is the person right now. She comes into our classrooms and actually gives hands-on, highly participatory workshops around how to do better research through our library. So by the end, when you're in that 4th year, like all this knowledge is accumulating, by the time you get to your 4th year, you're going to have some pretty strong skills in public communication, but also producing a good research paper as well. So all those methods get used.
Fantastic. We have a couple of questions here, more questions about placements. So David is wondering, what are some of the social advocacy and social policy related placements that might be available to BSW students? And Sean is wanting to know, when it comes to co-op placements and opportunities, is it a good idea to vary the kinds of environments we experience? I'm wondering if more exposure to different situations, realities, and procedures might better prepare me for work and career later on.
Now, I can't speak to the specific placements in that kind of detail because I don't work out of the placement office. My role is more overall the curriculum in the undergraduate program, but you'd be able to find those out fairly easily when you come to our program. And the second part of that question, Jake, can you just repeat that again for me?
Sure thing. So Sean's wondering if, when it comes to placements, is it a good idea to vary the kinds of environments we experience? wondering if more exposure to different situations and procedures might better prepare students for work later on.
Oh, definitely. I think stepping outside your comfort zone is a really good idea. I mean, some of our students do come in and they're very clear, this is what I want to do. And they have a plan that takes them right towards that outcome. But other students are not so sure. And I think it's a really good idea. I mean, university is this one stage in your life where you literally get to dabble in a whole bunch of stuff. And you may never have that other opportunity again if you don't do graduate studies. So we really would encourage you to check into placements that are perhaps out of your comfort zone. And you will be supported while you're there. You'll be working with a faculty consultant who runs a seminar with about, maybe a dozen other social work students, and you meet on a regular basis, so you get support as you do your placement. So for sure, I would encourage people to consider being curious, and just sort of delving into things that they don't know about so that they can strengthen their knowledge base.
Awesome. We have a couple more questions about sort of the relative malleability of the scheduling. So one anonymous attendee is asking, can we finish the program in 3 years if we take courses over the summer semesters? And we have Ebeke who is asking, is it better to switch to part-time studies if you're going to be working through your degree?
Michelle, do you want to respond to those?
Sure. Yeah. This is a question that comes up a lot in all sort of streams in the program in terms of trying to finish it quicker than for 3 years. But given that so the mandatory social work courses are only offered in the fall and the winter, and they're also offered in a way that is essential, so that every course that you take is helping you to knowledge and skills you need to succeed in the next course. It's really a way to jump through the program any quicker than 4 years. And in terms of like the other question, or part-time versus full-time, you definitely, that's you can take a part course load. Some students are taking 5 courses, which in Ryerson across that is 100% course load. But in our program, some students are taking 2 courses or 3 courses, and they're figuring out a timeline for themselves, recognizing that they're not going to graduate in 4 years. But you wouldn't switch your status. You're still a full-time program carrying a full-time course load.
Excellent. Someone's asking, so an anonymous attendee is asking, how big would you say the class sizes are? Can you talk about interacting and contacting professors and student support services?
I can talk about that. You'll find at the School of Social Work that in the first incoming year, the class sizes tend to be a little bit larger. I teach a first-year required course called Social Work Theories of Practice. Just finished that up in winter term, and I believe I had 55 students in my section. We run 6 sections of that course because it's required. So about 55 students, which is large. We always want to try and get those class sizes down, but sometimes that's difficult because we have a lot of students in our school. Now, as you move into second year, I teach a course called Power, Resistance, and Change. And in those class sizes tend to be a little bit smaller, can be anywhere from 35 to 45 students. And then as you move further into the program, you'll find that the class sizes start to get quite a bit smaller, especially as you're doing your placement seminars. We keep those very small because so much of the work is thinking about dilemmas and encounters and situations, case studies that happen in your placement. So you want to have a fairly small seminar group of 10 to 12 people, sometimes a little bit more than that, so you can sit around a large table and have really in-depth conversations. So class sizes start off a bit bigger, but gradually as you go through the program, they get smaller and smaller.
Excellent. I have a couple more questions about placements. So a number of people have asked, are placements paid? Do students ever receive payment for their work? And I also have an anonymous attendee asking, do any of these field placements lead to work? And furthermore, what does Ryerson do to help students gain employment after graduating?
Okay, so the first question was about our placements paid. And generally speaking, I can say that they are not paid. This is unpaid labor that you are going to be doing. There was one small exception that happened this past year, which was a bit of a blip because I think the City of Toronto decided to have a cluster of paid placements. But that just involved, as I said, a handful of students who had those opportunities. Going forward, though, we don't foresee having the funding available to have paid placements, although I will say that there's a wonderful group of activist students from Ryerson who are lobbying and doing social action work to try and make paid placements happen. And so we're all hopeful, and we would certainly support that in the future if that can happen. Jacob, you'll have to help me with the other two parts of that question. Sorry, I wasn't taking them down.
Oh, no problem. They were asking if placements often lead to work. So do you ever see students going to work at the places where they do their placements after they graduate? And yeah, I'll start with that for now.
Okay, so yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what we find is when a student gets in a placement and they learn it and they like it and are really successful there, there's incredible opportunities to be able to get jobs from that placement. It can be a launching board for actually working at that agency. And I can think of a number of students I know that have had those opportunities, that their early first jobs were based on the connections they made at placement. So 100% that's possible.
Great. So then the follow-up was, what does Ryerson do in general to help their students secure employment after they graduate?
Well, I know at our school, there's a lot of emphasis, as Michelle mentioned earlier. We help you develop your resume. We provide workshops on interviewing skills. And I know Ryerson generally has got some really good workshops, webinars, support people who can work with you to think about employment seeking strategies. And so there is sort of a student center with a variety of services that happen around employment. As you get into third and fourth year, you're going to be invited to attend workshops if you'd like to. So there are some very good supports for students looking for work.
And also the Career Center is an awesome support for students beginning even in year one. They really encourage students to connect early with them, and they do a lot of amazing work, including they do group work and kind of work, but also helping students individually with resumes and interviewing skills and networking. So that's a really good resource.
There's also I mentioned the Tri Mentoring program earlier, and there's also another component to the Tri Mentoring program where I think it's after you've been a mentor while you're being a mentor, you also could have the opportunity as a third or fourth year student to be matched with a career mentor or someone in the field. So that's another example of support that's available through Ryerson.
Awesome. I think this may be a question more or less for Jack, but how is navigating a social life and making new friends in such a large city?
How is navigating social life and making friends in such a large city? So I did not move to Toronto for my studies. I'm from Toronto, so I do have, you know, solid sort of social community maybe base outside of meeting new people through school. Certainly lots of people do move to Toronto for their studies, or just in general. I mean, you are beginning as a student in a very, very large university with lots of different people. So I mean, it can be overwhelming at first. I think, of course it is. It's also exciting. I think that I have developed friends through common interests, going to, you know, events on campus, or just being really taken by particular courses and talking about that. I'm a bit of a nerd, that's the truth. But certain clubs, I'm sure you can meet friends through. Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay to expect that to be a little bit overwhelming, but I think that kind of what I tell myself, even right now, as we're doing the first online virtual open house, is that sort of everyone's in the same boat, right? So everyone coming to the university for the first time, you're all in the same boat. You're all figuring it out. You know, just as simple as saying hi to people as you wait outside before you go inside or into the classroom, for instance, or hey, want to just walk to our next class together? Hey, want to find where the class is, you know, that kind of thing. That's how I've made some connections. Does that make sense? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that was a great answer. Thank you. We have a anonymous attendee asking, are you allowed to switch your placement? For instance, if you don't like the environment of the placement, can you transfer to a different one?
Well, that's a good question, because from time to time, there can be these situations where what we see is sort of a placement breakdown. Generally speaking, once you're in a placement, you are encouraged to do everything you can to make it work towards successful completion. As you can imagine, we have hundreds of undergraduate students that we are trying to manage doing placements with at any given time. And so to create a situation where you get in after a few weeks, you think, oh, I don't really like this, I want something else. You'd have to start that whole process of getting a placement all over again. And if we enabled that for every student, it would just become completely unmanageable. So you're really encouraged to do more of that front end work where you're working with your placement worker, your officer out of the field office, anticipating what is it that I want in a placement so that by the time you get there, hopefully it's a really positive experience for you. Now, that being said, there are from time to time situations where there's a placement breakdown that is in no way the fault of the student, or sometimes there is an issue that comes with a student. And in those situations, you would be surrounded with some supports. People would sort of do an exercise of analysis around what happened here and how can we make sure it doesn't happen again, and students will be replaced. But I'm happy to say that those are not very common. I think since the time I've been associate director over the last year, I've been involved in, I think, maybe 2 or 3 situations where there was just some extenuating circumstances and we recognized that the placement just couldn't go through, and so we replaced those students. But generally speaking, once you're in there, you get support to try and make it work. You've got your faculty consultant to problem solve with. They can come in and visit with the agency supervisor, the field placement supervisor you're working with, if there's issues that are happening, and try and resolve those issues. So generally speaking, most students just finish up their placement that they're given.
Amazing. Thank you for that answer. So we are now at 1:59 p.m. Believe it or not, the hour has pretty much gone by. This conversation's been great. It didn't feel like an hour at all, at least to me. So at this point, we are going to wrap up with live questions. We're going to have a few of our staff members stay on for a few more moments to answer these Q&A questions. But to Jack, Kristen, and Michelle, is there any sort of closing remarks or anything you'd like to say or like people to know that wasn't addressed before we wrap up here?
I think we covered just a wide range, and I'm aware that there's probably still some outstanding questions, and I know that the staff here will be able to help you with those. I think you covered off a lot of the more commonly asked questions that we see from students. I think one of the things I want to just highlight is that we are in a period of real uncertainty in terms of what will be happening in the fall. But I know that we have many teams here at Ryerson who are working hard at figuring out a bunch of different plans, all in response to what government officials and public health agencies are advising us around whether our classes will be all remote or online, or whether there'll be some kind of mix of face-to-face classrooms and online classrooms. So we're still waiting to get some guidance around what that will look like. Our top priority, of course, is to make sure that all students and staff and faculty members are safe and healthy, and that we provide the conditions for your learning that ensure that you keep on being safe and healthy. So I hope to meet all of you in face-to-face at some point over the next while, and good luck with your application process. And thank you so much for joining us today.